Vitality is our ability to keep our mind healthy and at its most optimal state all day long. We have to think of our brain and its ability to process information as a point system, almost like a health bar in a video game. When we wake up, it's refreshed, rested, and full of health, therefore functioning at its most optimal state. And as the day goes on, we encounter various factors that reduce its health points, ultimately affecting its efficiency. It's our job to avoid the monsters that are harmful to our health points. Do you ever wonder why people fail in life? Have you seen the movie Venom with Tom Hardy, where all day long he's fighting an inner monster, and when he's too exhausted, Venom breaks out and wreaks havoc everywhere? This is how we have to think of our brain. Too much exhaustion, and we lose the battle. In our case, the battle represents our logical mind losing control, and our emotional mind making the decisions. Our brain has two systems, logical and emotional. Your logical brain, from the time you wake up, is in control and working its hardest to figure out problems and doing analysis all day long. Ideally, we want to keep this machine running at its highest efficiency. We can do this by streamlining our day and choosing the quality of interactions we have. What strains our logical system isn't the thousands of tasks we give it every day. On the contrary, the human brain is an amazing tool, capable of miraculous processing. Your logical mind can tackle everything you throw at it. What does reduce its health points is emotion, the other system we have in our brain. Think of it like this. We only have 100% to give across both systems. When we wake up, the scale looks like this: 100% logical and 0% emotional, as nothing has happened in our day yet. Now comes along your daily interactions, the social medias, family fights, YouTube and distractions. You see, these all, even when good, affect and amplify our emotional mind. Add in 15 minutes of TikTok before you start work, and you've voluntarily changed 100% logic to 90% logic and 10% emotion. Have a happy moment with your kids, or a fight with your father-in-law, and these emotions, good or bad, are shifting that logical scale into emotion. TikTok for 10 minutes mixed with a highly emotional morning, and possibly some radio on the way to work. A few tweets followed by a YouTube video, and I'm thinking you're operating logically at about 65% at this point. While this may feel like a low-impact, normal morning, it is affecting your mind's ability to process logically, as your emotional system is taking over and strangling the control away from your logic. All careers and fields are subject to this. Logic loses control over time during the day. This is often why you see me have minimal engagement on social media, or get involved in any kind of drama content, or highly emotional conclusions. This is part maturity and part logical mind control. People ask me, how do you work 14 hours a day with such high frequency without burning out, Cotton? Well, I've trained myself to be the most optimized version so I can conquer the impossible. This is where athletes, doctors, day traders, lawyers, you name it, the list goes on. This is where every single critical field in our world struggles. And that's where people fail. It's that they can't control their emotional selves. If you find yourself being emotional or susceptible to this type of emotional triggering, well, guess what? That emotional triggering reduces logic. You've lost control. The control center's defenses are down, and emotion is driving the car as it's got complete control and it's in play. Now, we also have natural selection. From the time we wake up, our mind creates a map, a set of objects to complete for the day, a natural set of thoughts that come to a logical set of conclusions. This map is created in the first few moments of awake state, and of course, while logic is at 100% and emotion is at 0%, a perfect set of tasks are created and the way in which we can complete them. You can already see the problem forming though. 100% logical is our key word here. Imagine your map is as clear as day, and you know the exact path in which you need to get to the end. Well, every 5% of emotion that takes away from your logic, you need to imagine that it's a dark spot on the map that becomes concealed. Enough emotion sneaks in, and all of a sudden your map is completely dark. And all you can see is where you started the day and the end where you need to get to, with everything else being blacked out. This alters our mind's natural selection, or if you'd rather, our map, and creates the daily fatigue where we have reached our limit for the day. You then get into the really bad cues inside that darkness where your mind creates false information out of thin air to try to relight that map. It then clings on to these false pieces because we can't fail at things that we create out of thin air, because we'll just adjust the rules to make them succeed in our perfect demise. Perfectly optimized natural selection of the mind should be this beautiful path of learning that we go down. When emotional creeps in, the dangers are disguised as what may feel like the correct information. This is the leading cause for human and systematic error. It's also why we see people who fail or succeed organizing groups. Their mind has made it the acceptable path. The thing is, if we were just to not touch anything, our thoughts would evolve in a logical way. So it's important to be careful with your emotions, as they can really alter what's going on behind the scenes. Now, sometimes logic can't quite figure out the puzzle, and emotion needs to help it along. This is where not all emotions are bad. Instead, a low impact of emotions and a high impact of logic creates the perfect balance. It gives people intuition or impressions that they need in their mind, which is an additional layer of logic working to uncover something we may not be aware of. A piece of logic the subconscious mind knows, but it can't quite convey without the triggering of emotion. Mastering these low-impact emotions and logical layers to work together allows the logical mind to utilize that additional unlocked layer when needed. Keeping emotion capped to around 5 or maybe 10% allows you to still have an illuminated map while also having the benefit of an unlocked layer, intuition, or impressions. Minimal to no emotions allows logic to work in harmony with all of its layers. So now we need to also be aware of cognitive strain. Your logical mind is working all day long at a high rate, and it takes effort to do this. It takes effort to fight off the emotions that reduce this logic. So, cognitive strain happens when the gas is being held for too long at too high of a rate. This is much like being under the influence or not getting enough sleep. It has the same effect on your mind. It's called cognitive strain. We also need to be aware of ego depletion. This is the emotions that are happening in our mind. The emotional triggers that are around us that are constantly reducing our ability to control logic. They attack your control center and reduce the amount of logic you can have. Ego depletion and cognitive strain, they work together to create this concoction, a crazy attack on the logical mind, your control center. If you're feeling like you can't do this anymore, your mind is tired, this is what is happening. You're experiencing ego depletion and cognitive strain. Gas down for too long leads to fogginess. So now we know that we must keep emotions low throughout the day. I like to see this as in taking the impact of emotions. I think at this time, we should do a visualization. You stub your toe. All of a sudden, you're angry. Pain is at a 10. You freak out. You bang your fist on the counter. You swear and get really upset. Or you could kind of just be like that cool guy who walks it off in front of a bunch of people. You stub your toe. Ah, man, that hurt. You move on and internalize it a little bit, so that pain doesn't really affect you that much. This is the same way I like to see emotions. You have a choice to say how much emotional events of the day impact you. Think about stubbing your toe. If you have something crazy that happens, try to minimize the impact it has on you. Try to take the emotional event and reduce the value you give it. This will keep your logical layers highly efficient. and will keep you in control for longer, and you'll stay sharper throughout the day. We have to minimize the events of emotion and how much it actually affects us, and reduce the amount of scale emotion steals away from logic. This is how we control ego, depletion, and cognitive strain. You need to start having a different perspective on the way you intake information and its long-term hidden effects. Now, if we want to heighten our mind's ability to be efficient, this comes from an understanding of how our brain works, and then making the conscious choice to adjust the way in which we think. For many, this will be a call to action for maturity at first, and then ends up being a conquest to reduce the amount of attention we give to emotion. This starts to unlock in life what becomes worth worrying about. Too often, I see people failing simply due to just not slowing down and thinking. They come to instant conclusions on almost everything, which is a dead giveaway. They are making emotional decisions which have zero logic applied. Funny enough, it's always later in the day as well when emotion has completely taken over. I'm constantly bewildered by people who ask odd questions. And then when I repeat them out loud in a slower manner, a moment of embarrassment rushes to the surface. Speaking slowly back to someone can be a tactic to force them to think. I want to leave you with a visual reference where I see the most common attributes linked together: logical scale and emotional scale.